unusual 8, and I wrote a story for the magazine Looking Back about Christmas, and I'm happy to share it with you. The Christmas Surprise. When my parents went out the door that cold December night in 1946, Dad told me, "Patsy, keep out of our bedroom." And then they were gone in a swirl of evening in Paris and Dad's pungent pipe tobacco. They were going to dinner at a downtown restaurant and then to the gambling barges anchored in San Pedro Harbor. I longed for the day when I would be old enough and sophisticated enough to go out at night. I was just 10 and my little brother Jerry was 5. We didn't require a babysitter, for he behaved me and went to bed as he was told. We walked 2 blocks to Chase's drugstore on Firestone Boulevard and admired the colorful Christmas lights around the crowded windows. At the soda fountain, we each ordered our favorite special dinner treat. For me, a tuna fish sandwich on white toast and potato salad, and for Jerry, a hot dog and a handful of potato chips. And each one of us enjoyed a curvaceous green glass of Coca-Cola. Back home, it was nearing Jerry's bedtime. I could stay up until 9, but he had to go to bed soon after supper. I helped him into his striped pajamas and led him to his bedroom, turned down the Roy Rogers bedspread and tucked him in. My new Lana Turner paper doll from Cress's waited, along with the nighttime radio stories, Amos and Andy, Mr. Backstage, Pepper Young's Family, and Your FBI in Peace and War. I loved the music. Dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum. Jerry and I always stared at the wanted posters in the post office. All we longed to discover a dangerous criminal and get the amazing reward. But it never happened. There weren't many America's Most Wanted criminals in Southgate, California. I walked by my parents' bedroom. The door was closed. I couldn't resisting opening it just a crack. It was dark, foreboding. I flicked on the light. Dad's police uniform was neatly hung in the closet. I knew his gun and Sam Brown holster were in the forbidden drawer. His ashtray and cough drops were on the bedroom table. Mom's perfume bottle stood a sentry in the glass tray on her bureau. I picked up a tiny cut glass container and sniffed. It smelled like crushed gardenia blossoms and vanilla. I glanced around the room. There was something new there, on top of Mom's cedar chest, something covered with a gray cloth, something large and beckoning. I caught my breath. My heart was beating loudly. I longed to pull aside the cloth, but I held back. Dad had warned me to keep out of this room, but it sang to me, enticed me, called to me like a siren, and before I knew what I was doing, I was standing in front of the mysterious package, reaching out to it. I fingered the rough cloth, held my breath, and lifted the corner. It looked like a large wooden box painted white. I jerked the cloth aside, and there was the most wonderful sight, a large 2-story dollhouse. I clapped my hands with glee. I lifted the hinged roof and peered inside. Each room was crowded with tiny plastic furniture, a sofa, chairs, beds, a playpen for the dolly. There were curtains on the plasticine windows, even a fireplace with a red light bulb for the fire. The tiny bathroom held a toilet with a lid that went up and down. A pink ironing board with a tiny, tiny little plastic iron at the top stood in the kitchen. Benches were hung, well, they were glued onto the wall. There were pans and crocheted rag rugs on the floors. I let out my breath, and this was all for me. I clapped with happiness. Later, I learned that Dad had built the dollhouse in his workshop in the backyard, and Mom had sewn the curtains and rugs. "What are you doing?" Guiltily, I whirled around. It was little brother Jerry, who had jumped out of bed when he heard my delighted exclamations. "You aren't supposed to be in here," he told me. I hurriedly threw the cover back onto the magnificent dollhouse and ushered him back to his room. "Don't you dare tell Dad," I told him. "Don't you dare tell on me." "Okay, I won't," he promised, and he never did. But do you know, that Christmas morning when I ran into the ruckus room and discovered the dollhouse, I felt a surge of disappointment. I had to lie and pretend to be surprised. I learned a valuable lesson. Don't sneak around and go where you're not supposed to. That morning, when I disobeyed my father, I ended up having to lie, feeling guilty, and ruining my own surprise.
Hello, I'm Ethyl Carter, and today I'm going to read a letter written by a hillbilly aunt to her nephew. Dear Billy Joe Bob, I'm writing this slow because I know you can't read fast. We don't live where we did when you left home. Your pa read in the newspaper that most accidents happen within 20 minutes of your home, so we moved. I won't be able to send you the address because the last family that lived here took the house numbers when they moved, so they wouldn't have to change their address. This place is really nice. I even has a washing machine. I'm not sure it works so well though. Last week I put a load of clothes in and I pulled the chain, and we haven't seen the clothes since then. The weather isn't bad here. It only rained twice last week. The first time for 3 days and the second time for 4 days. About that winter coat you wanted me to send, your Uncle Bubba said it would be too heavy to send in the mail with the buttons on, so we cut them off and put them in the pockets. Bubba locked his keys in the car yesterday. We were really worried because it took him 2 hours to get me and your father out of the car. Your sister had a baby this morning, but I haven't found out what it is yet, so I don't know if you're an aunt or an uncle. Uncle Bobby Ray fell into a vat of whiskey last week. Some men tried to pull him out, but he fought him off, and he drowned. We had him cremated. He burned for 3 days. Merry Christmas, nephew, from your favorite aunt.
Hello, Merry Christmas. I'm Lorene Christian. I'm going to tell you a story about me when I was 8 years old. It was Christmas, 1945. I was 8 years old. I grew up in a small farming community in Colorado, Lorene, Colorado. Population approximately 600. As Christmas 1945 neared, I got more excited by the day. All us girls always got a new doll and a whole wardrobe of little tiny clothes for them that my grandmother sewed by hand. She must have taken her all year to dress all those little dolls. But this Christmas I had an added surprise. Every Saturday, as the farmers and their families came into town to do their shopping and attend the weekly live turkey draw, I just happened to be in the local grocery store buying my usual candy bar. And because I was such a frequent customer, this particular Saturday, the grocer, Mr. McCarroll, gave me a free ticket for the turkey draw. This turkey draw was held in the vacant lot next to the bank. I went over and put my ticket stub in the box with all the others. Well, I bet you've guessed by now, yes, I won the turkey that Saturday morning. It was a live turkey in a gunny sack and weighed about 25 pounds. Being a skinny little 8-year-old, that was quite a chore dragging that live turkey down the sidewalk to my home. There was a small old shed in the backyard where I decided my new pet, Tommy Turkey, could be very happy living in. I got an old pan for his water and corn cobs from my mother's garden for Tommy to nibble on. I visited my pet Tommy Turkey every day, and was so happy to have a pet. I had one my very own self. Well, Christmas Day approached and everyone was so excited. I even gave my pet Tommy Turkey an extra corn cob. 2 days before Christmas Day, as I followed my dad around the backyard, I wondered why he was carrying an axe. I got a bit nervous as he approached the shed where my pet Tommy Turkey lived. Dad opened the door, grabbed my pet Tommy Turkey by the neck, took him to a tree stump and chopped his head off. I screamed and nearly fainted when my 8-year-old eyes saw this traumatizing event. Christmas Day arrived, and even my new doll with her new wardrobe could not console me. I cried all morning, and when the family gathered around the table for the Christmas feast, there in the middle of the table, all brown and baked, was my pet Tommy Turkey. As you can guess, I never ate much that day. And to this day, I don't like to eat turkey at holiday parties. Even a turkey sandwich does not appeal to me. Merry Christmas.
Hi, I'm Janice, Laine, and I'm going to read you a story about the Ill-Tempered Snowman, which is written by Mabel Marlowe and produced in a book called Oxford Book of Christmas Stories in 1986. The Ill-Tempered Snowman. It was dawn on an icy Christmas morning. The sun was emerging from over the horizon, and standing at the top of the hill was the snowman. He had been there for about 3 weeks and was looking a little worse for the wear. There was a stick underneath his arm. If he had originally had a hat and scarf, it had long been stolen. One of the stones that had been his eyes had fallen off, so only had one eye. The carrot that was placed in the middle of his face to represent his nose was now rotten and had become black and shriveled. And the small stick that was his mouth had slipped slightly to one end so that his mouth was crooked. He was not a pretty sight. Oh, and he was cold. Oh, so cold. The wind at the top of the hill was relentless, and he had almost become solid ice. He gazed straight forward with his one eye and watched as the sun rose higher in the sky. That looks as though it might be warm, he thought. The large red golden ball did indeed look as though it might be warm. I think I'll just go a little nearer and see if it is. He carefully picked up one foot and shook away the loose snow. Then he did the same with the other, and clumsily began to walk down the hill. Clump, clump, clumpity clump, 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 clump. As he made his way down the hill, the snowman noticed an old woman gathering sticks for her fire. She was wearing a bright red shawl. Ooh, that looks warm, thought the snowman. He went over to the old lady and said, "Give me that shawl." "I will not," replied the lady. "I made this for myself many years ago to keep me warm on a cold day like this." "Cold? Cold? You don't know the meaning of the word," said the snowman. "Do you have a pillar of solid ice running down the center of your body?" "No, I haven't," said the old lady. "Well, I do," he responded. "So give me that shawl or I'll hit you in the head with my stick." Well, the old lady didn't want to be hit in the head, so reluctantly she handed the shawl to the snowman. And without so much as a "please, may I," or even a hint of "thank you very much," the snowman took the shawl and wrapped it tightly around his shoulders. With that, he set off again down the hill, clump, clump, clumpity clump, clump, followed at a safe distance by the old lady. A little further down the hill, the snowman came upon a young boy who was making snowballs and throwing them at a tree. The snowman noticed that the boy was wearing a pair of bright red woolen gloves. "Ooh, they look warm," thought the snowman. "Give me those gloves," he demanded. "I will not," the boy replied. "My mother knitted them for me. They keep my hands warm on a cold day." "Cold? Cold? What do you know about being cold?" bellowed the snowman. "Are you covered with snow from head to foot?" "No," said the boy, "I'm not." "Well, I am," the snowman shouted back. "And if you don't give me those gloves right now, I'll hit you in the head with my stick." Well, the boy didn't want to be hit in the head, so he reluctantly took off the gloves and handed them to the snowman. And without so much as a "please, may I," or even a hint of "thank you very much," the snowman took the gloves and put them on his hands. He drew the old lady's shawl more tightly around his shoulders and set off again down the hill with a clump, clump, clumpity clump clump, followed at a safe distance by the old lady and the young boy. When he got near the foot of the hill, he noticed an old farmer sitting on a bench tying up his bootlace. The farmer was wearing a bright red woolly hat. "Ooh, that looks warm," thought the snowman when he saw the woolly hat. "Give me that woolly hat," he demanded of the farmer. "I will not," said the farmer. "My wife knitted it for me to keep my head warm on a cold day." "Cold? Cold? What do you know about cold?" the snowman angrily replied. "Do icicles drip from your nose?" "No," said the farmer, "they don't." "Well, they do mine," said the snowman, "and if you don't give me your hat, I will hit you in the head with my stick." Well, the farmer didn't want to be hit in the head with a stick, so he handed over his warm woolly hat, and without so much as a "please may I," or even a hint of "thank you very much," the snowman pulled the hat down over where his ears would have been if he had had any, and pulled his gloves further up his hands, wrapped the shawl even tighter around his shoulders, and continued to the bottom of the hill. Clump, clump, clumpity clump clump, followed at a safe distance by the old lady, the young boy, and the old farmer. When he arrived at the foot of the hill, the snowman saw a village, and at the edge of the village was the schoolhouse, and standing in the doorway of the schoolhouse was the schoolmaster, wearing a pair of bright red velvet slippers. "Whoa, they look warm," thought the snowman. He clumped up to the schoolmaster and rudely demanded, "Give me those slippers." "Certainly," replied the schoolmaster, "but if I take them off here, my feet will get wet. Why don't you come inside where it's warm?" The snowman went into the schoolhouse, and the schoolmaster led him into his living quarters. There was a big fire burning in the grate. "Now then," said the schoolmaster, pulling a chair toward the fire, "why don't you sit here and warm your feet while I go and take my slippers off?" The snowman sat in the chair, and the schoolmaster pushed him even closer to the fire and left the room. By this time, the old lady, the young boy, and the farmer had arrived outside the schoolhouse and were peering in through the window. The schoolmaster returned and said to the snowman, "I'll give you my slippers shortly, but I was just about to make some hot soup. I'll bring you some." He pushed the chair even closer to the fire and then noticed the old lady and her companions looking in through the window. "Come in," he said to them. "You look colder than the snowman. Would you like some soup?" The three came in. They looked over toward the fireplace. All they could see was a chair, and on the floor beneath the chair, a very wet shawl, a wet pair of gloves, and a wet woolly hat, all floating in a pool of water. The schoolmaster picked up the wet clothing, wrung out the water, and placed the items on his clothes horse. "There," he said, "we'll hang them to dry." He picked up a mop and mopped up the water that had been the snowman. There was also a small black stone and a piece of stick, which he threw in the fireplace. The larger stick he used to poke the fire. "That's the snowman sorted," said the schoolmaster. "Serves him right. Now who's for soup?"